to Tiny Training. I'm Deborah DeBoer, Director of Professional Development, and with me is Jeff Lasky, NASBAR CEO. Today, we're going to address a situation that occurs frequently in the real estate industry. Brokers moving into management positions or administrative staff moving up into a leadership position. Many of you have heard the phrase, the Peter Principle. It's explained in a book by that name, written by Dr. Lawrence Peter. I'll let Jeff explain what that means.
Thank you, Deborah. Nice to see you. It's a concept that says smart, talented people get promoted over and over until they reach their level of incompetence because new skills for the new position have not been developed as required. This seems like a terrible waste of talent and frustration for all those involved. We decided to focus today on some things that a newly promoted person can do when faced with a promotion and what their boss can do to make the transition easier.
One of the first challenges, thanks Jeff, one of the first challenges someone becoming a manager faces is that the people they work with are used to seeing them as one of the gang. And now they're in a supervisory position. And they are going to at least exercise some supervisory authority. To exercise authority, something must happen first. The new manager must build their credibility. So how does a manager build their credibility?
Well, it begins with the person who promoted the new manager to a person of authority. That person, the boss, needs to let everyone know that the new manager's position has changed and what their new responsibilities are. In other words, the manager needs to borrow a little credibility from the boss at first. That's an important initial step because otherwise everyone else will wonder why the manager thinks they can manage them. The gift of credibility will only last so long, though. The new manager needs to demonstrate some new skills and expertise. It's the boss's job to make sure that the new manager has access to learning those new skills.
Thanks, Jeff. You're quite right. That borrowed credibility will only last so long. So let's deal with this not being one of the gang anymore. The new manager needs to set themselves apart from those who have been their contemporaries. Not too far apart, but apart. Sometimes a new physical office can help, but it's really the manager's job to separate themselves, to become less familiar. What does it mean to be less familiar? No more moaning about the boss or the company, less joking around with the gang, fewer pet names and inside jokes. It is both subtle and obvious ways to create a little bit of distance.
Well, and I know at NASBAR, there's no moaning about the boss.
Of course not.
But getting back to your point, so how does the boss help them with this? And by giving the manager direction, on the skills they need, by reiterating the manager's job responsibilities to everyone, each new manager needs to remember that they may need someday to give instruction, reprimand, or even terminate someone's employment. It's a subtle distinction, but an important one.
You're right. A new manager needs a clear understanding that their job is to help everyone do their job better. Pitching in is important, and setting a clear example is also important. I once worked for the president of a company that repaired tires, worked in the old Bridgeport neighborhood. Whenever the president and I walked through the yard, he picked up every nail, screw, and piece of metal that he saw. I asked him why he didn't just let the yard man do that. And he looked at me, rolled his eyes, and said, "What kind of leader would I be if I didn't demonstrate how important it is to keep the yard clean? Pitch in, just don't delegate."
But I underline this, delegating is an important skill to learn as well. And how you delegate is critical. Barking orders, telling people what they must do doesn't work, at least not in the long term. Adults respond much better if they understand why they're being asked to do something, i.e. context, right? And why it's important. Good managers treat the people they supervise respectfully.
And so communication is a key skill for a new manager to develop. There are 3 words that every new manager needs to use frequently: please, thank you, and I'm sorry. Face-to-face communication and digital communication needs to demonstrate good manners. Face-to-face communications have the advantage of being able to see body language and perhaps modify the message. Written communications are far more challenging. Reading out loud any communication before sending it can often adjust the tone of the communication. Otherwise, the new manager should just ask someone else to read it and reflect on the tone of the communication.
Mhm. Yeah, that third word, sorry, is an important one, and I happen to have a lot of experience with that word.
Me too.
Uh, Here are two examples of how it can be used. I'm sorry that I don't know that answer is only a problem if it's not followed with, I'll find out and I'll let you know by this afternoon. Some of this type of sorry can be avoided through preparation. As a manager who wants to build credibility and authority, preparation is critical. For example, if you're charged with taking care of human resources issues, you know you'll receive lots of questions about benefits. Instead of saying, I'll find out repeatedly, prepare an FAQ that answers most questions and have it available to send. Become the expert. Knowledge builds credibility. The other way that the word sorry is important is this. As a new manager, you'll make mistakes. When you make a mistake, own it. Acknowledge that you made a mistake, say you're sorry, move on, and make sure it doesn't happen again. Taking responsibility for action is a great way to build credibility.
Jeff, you mentioned the word preparation. That is, you're quite right, is a critical way to build credibility. To prepare for a meeting, for example, use the available tools to determine if the participants are available, and if they are, to schedule the meeting and provide the information for the meeting as efficiently as possible. In another context, it means showing up at the meeting early, making sure the room is clean and set up, the food's arrived and is presented attractively, that the AV is working, so that when the participants arrive, everything has been already made ready. That demonstrates a manager's care for those that they supervise.
You know, one of the things that I think is most important in a manager is a positive and bright attitude. No one likes a mope. The new manager doesn't have to be a rah-rah cheerleader, but their attitude, voice, and posture should demonstrate their enthusiasm for what is occurring. The manager needs to bring energy to a situation, not drain it away. This is a manager's challenge to put personal issues away and greet the people who work there with a smile and a good word.
And here's my favorite what not to do. The boss says, the boss says, the boss says. Use that phrase and it demonstrates that you have no confidence in yourself and your ability to manage. The people managing will immediately lose faith in you.
You are so right, Deborah. Confidence is another characteristic of a good manager. Confidence that they can achieve the goals of the organization by helping every other person in the organization achieve their goals. Being a manager really means being focused on others to a very large extent, figuring out how to make it easy for them to be their best. We're almost done, but I want to make a point that a new manager has the right to expect some things from their manager or leader. The leader needs to do some work too. The leader should provide continuing training in the important skills, both soft and hard skills, uh, conflict management, communication, negotiating, organization, and empathy. Set reasonable goals and explain the underlying reasons for the goals. Provide both positive and negative feedback routinely. Set the example on how to do this. Make it a safe place to try something and fail. And provide recognition for growth and development. Or to quote Deborah's phrase, give praise and glory when appropriate. This required commitment from both the boss and the manager, and even the people being managed. It means that everyone has a role and everyone is recognized and should be recognized for their contribution.
Hey, Jeff, we've covered a lot of ground today and our time is getting short.
This was a good day's work. Thanks for having me on again, Deborah. Thanks to everyone listening. Hope this helps to make your transition easier.